Welcome to the Founders Odyssey podcast, where we create an environment for founders to thrive through education, inspiration, and a supportive community. My name is Nathan Byrd, and I will be your host today. A man of many talents, Earl Foote, founder and CEO of Nexus IT Consultants, is a wealth of knowledge. Having been in the tech industry for over 20 years, he has amassed a plethora of clients through his service-first approach and is continuing to build a culture of excellence within his ever-growing team. Earl Foote's kind nature, action-oriented personality, and growth mindset is what truly sets him apart from the competition. His dedication to his business and living a balanced lifestyle has allowed him to attract a great following of professionals who respect and revere his success. Let us welcome Earl Foote to the Founders Odyssey podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Nathan, thank you so much for the invite. I'm super happy to be here. And by the way, thanks for the super kind intro. I don't know who wrote that, but it's all false.
It's all false. Well, we enjoy kind of, like I said, giving respect where respect is due whenever we have people on the podcast. And you're somebody I definitely respect, certainly in business as well as in the IT sector. So today we're going to jump through quite a few different hoops. We're going to take people on an odyssey, right? On a journey of where Earl Foote has been, where he's going, and what is he excited about. So first things first, let's hop into how you got started in IT and also in business in general.
Very good. So at the time when my brother and I started this company, I was actually I kind of wrapped up school and my degree. I think within a year prior, a degree in civil engineering, and I had been working actually full time doing civil engineering and drafting. I'd started doing drafting and then kind of worked into civil engineering, and I'd been doing that for like 4 or 5 years while I was going to school. I kind of just decided like that career path wasn't really for me. It was fairly mundane, and I wasn't having a really great time, honestly, at it. And my brother, had recently graduated with his degree in IT, and systems admin sort of certifications and stuff like that. And fairly immediately, he had some contacts with some reasonably high-profile organizations that wanted to have him come and moonlight, essentially, to be a contract system administrator or contract IT guy for them, more kind of in the evenings sort of a thing, freelance moonlighting sort of a situation. At the time, I was a dabbler in technology. In fact, the good majority of companies I'd worked with in the engineering space, I had helped them kind of do their digital transformations. I was a geek. I was fairly proficient in technology, which, interesting enough, I'd kind of got into that industry because I wanted to draw. I enjoyed being on a drawing board because it helped me tap into my creative side. And but funny enough, I was helping those companies like affect their digital transformation and go from the drawing board to AutoCAD, based systems, and kind of helping them. In fact, some of my employers, like literally when I got there, they had 0 computers, right? And so I was helping them design like a server infrastructure and computers and client server environments and getting rolling out AutoCAD type solutions. And so, I wasn't a stranger to, to technology or the IT industry at the time. And ultimately, my brother and I decided to jump, both feet in and, give it a go in business. So we started really moonlighting for a couple of, fairly high profile organizations. And, it quickly evolved. And of course, we were, in those early days, we were trying to find our footing and figure out what would work out. So we were doing some consumer-based services, computer hardware sales, computer sales to consumers. We were also doing business to business services, primarily contract on-site IT services. Before, really we're in the managed security service space. Before that, those were even terms or really a concept. We were doing relatively the same thing, but we were doing it mostly all on site, because 23 years ago, while you could do remote connectivity, into office spaces and stuff like that to do support, it was very slow. We were literally using like 56K dial-up modems or ISDN connections. DSL was just barely kind of, becoming a concept, and it was slow DSL, right? So doing remote support and services was not really a huge thing at the time. So it was primarily on-site services. Anyways, that's kind of, how the whole journey got started. Of course, it's, there's been some pivots, and it's morphed and changed over the past 23 years. It's been a lot of work to really figure out what the market really needs and what resonates with the market, and what creates a viable business model in this space. But it's been a fun journey as well, to kind of figure all that out, and it's consistently changing. Like, I might be biased, but I think that few industries change at the pace that the technology industries do. And so for us, we kind of have to almost reinvent ourselves every 18 to 24 months. Maybe not massive pivots, but we have to reassess what's working in the market and what's resonating with the market, and adjust our offerings and that kind of stuff, right? So even just over the past 24 months with COVID, that's been a big thing. The way that people work has changed significantly. And so the way that they engage with technology and how that technology supports their businesses, and how you keep a solid cybersecurity program going when you have these distributed workforces, all of that's changed. It turned on its head 24 months ago. And so our model has changed significantly over those last 24 months as well.
Sounds like you've certainly learned a lot here from the past, and you continue to grow and evolve. And that's what every business and every founder needs to do, as you know, and that we both know. We see it all the time in business. So let's try to construct here, because I know you're a creative, and maybe this will help the audience out there. So you're coming to we're going to have two offshoots. It's basically a Y. And on one side, we have a technical skill set. And then on the other side, we have an interpersonal communications and interpersonal skill set. So let's talk a little bit about the technical skill set that you're seeing in the market today and how it's evolving. And then we'll shift gears into the interpersonal skill set that people need to have and to start evolving, because you said just in the past 2 years, there's been a major evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. So of course, my discipline, or my industry, in the tech industry, is, it's fairly concentrated on what is infrastructure and cybersecurity, and compliance. We aren't a development firm, and a lot of people think about technology and they think about apps, and they think about, SaaS, software as a service. They think about, developers and that kind of stuff. That isn't our side of the industry. And of course, the technology industry, there are dozens and dozens of career paths that you can choose in this industry anymore. We are on, that infrastructure side, or in other words, we design networks and cloud infrastructure, and we deploy those and manage and maintain them and support them, and all of it with an intense focus on cybersecurity and compliance. And I would say, in our side of the industry, the evolution that we're seeing, certainly with cybercrime becoming so intensely prolific, and even over the last 24 months throughout COVID, I think there's been some studies show as much as a 600 to 800% uptick in cybercrime over the last 24 months. And so, in terms of the technical capabilities and skills, I know us as an organization, and what we're seeing in the industry is that there's this transition from kind of an IT generalist, an IT professional that knows how to design, server and workplace infrastructures, and cloud infrastructures and deploy those to people who are becoming hyper focused on the compliance and cybersecurity realm. And so that's a really important, part of our current offerings. Of course, when COVID hit, we have clients that are, good size organizations that by law have to be compliant with different regulations, whether they're federal or they're state regulations. And suddenly transitioning to this distributed workforce for them completely changed that whole dynamic. Maybe they were in 4 different offices before in very controlled technological environments that, we had complete control over as, their administration group. And now, they transition and they have hundreds of offices because everybody's working from home. Sometimes, people are no longer working on corporate issued computers, but they're working on personal laptops or personal desktops or tablets. And now your attack surface just went from, for hackers, just went from 4 offices to hundreds of offices, and most of those hundreds of offices with very loose security practices, right? And so that's been, one of the significant, evolutions we've seen in the industry here over the past 24 months. And the talent gap that exists to be able to address that, that understands the intricacies and, has done enough in terms of experience and or education on the cyber and compliance side, and how you have to implement controls in order to keep the data of those organizations safe, but also keep them in a compliant position. The game's completely changed 100% over the last 24 years and become significantly more complex. So on the technological side, that's really the skill set, that we hone in on, that we're looking for, and then you asked about the interpersonal side, and look, I think modern business, that's another place where there's been a significant amount of evolution. And I'm grateful for the evolution. Even over the 23 years that I've been in business, I've seen, hyper functioning organizations are the organizations that win. And in order to create a hyper functioning organization, you've got to have really great culture. There's got to be high trust within your organization. Like, people have to really trust each other and know that, that their team has their back, and that they're going to be supported. And then even if you don't always see eye to eye, that you can sit down at the table and you can figure out, compromises and happy mediums for how you work together, right? Or at minimum that that your team members are going to have your back. And then, I think emotional intelligence, just plays a huge role, not only on the leadership side, and absolutely, like in modern business, leaders have got to be very emotional, intelligent people, right? They've got to step aside from all of the raw emotion of doing business and the roller coaster that it is, right? Because it is an absolute roller coaster. And they've certainly got to step aside, from their own ego and be able to understand that, being a leader is really about helping and coaching people and helping them achieve their career goals and their personal goals. And by doing so, when you serve your people, when you enable your people, they serve your clients well. But it's not just on the leadership side. Like, you need your team to be very emotionally intelligent people. You need them not to knee jerk, to difficult situations, or to, have deep emotions, that they're bringing into conversations and situations with their colleagues where they could create, very unsavory outcomes, right? That everybody's playing level-headed and just kind of, recognizing and realizing that, the game of life and the game of business is not easy. None of it's easy. And that we're all kind of exposed in the process. And we just have to keep things even kill and understand how we work together to create the best outcomes for all stakeholders. Right. And that's, I think that's kind of how I've seen, those two pieces really evolve, particularly over recent years.
Well, speaking of evolution, I know you've personally have evolved throughout business and as well as personal. And as you evolve personally, then your business typically can follow the maturation that you're going through. So let's touch on the maturation of yourself and then also how it has impacted your business in a positive way as you start to mature through these processes.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point you've keyed in on there, Nathan. And um, uh, I think first of all, once you recognize in life and in business that you're 100% responsible for the outcomes that you produce, right? Um, like what the experience you have in life and the outcomes you produce and in business, they're not dependent on anybody else but yourself, or any other circumstances. And so I see, particularly a lot of younger, and I don't mean necessarily younger by age, but younger by tenure founders that they want to point a lot of fingers or play the blame game of, things aren't going well in my organization because of these team members, or it's not going well because of market conditions, or whatever the situation might be, right? When you really dig deep and kind of go, look, at the root and core, and especially as a founder, or in my situation, a CEO, as a senior leader, a senior executive, when you dig deep and go, okay, any um, any unsavory outcome in this organization, I play a role in that to some extent, right? And so I've got to figure out why we're producing unsavory outcomes and what my role is in that, and then I've got to fill those gaps, right? And so for me, my 23-year journey definitely has been very much about figuring out what my role has been in producing the wrong outcomes in business, and then making sure that I'm covering my gaps either in skill or knowledge or mindset, behaviors, actions, words, whatever it might be, and so I think you have to be a an effective modern leader and entrepreneur. You've got to be real with yourself. You've got to be really vulnerable. You've got to be willing to tear yourself down and recognize and realize I'm not perfect. Again, you got to set ego aside, right? And you got to just say, okay, look, I realize that I have ownership in what's happening here. Something's, I've produced the wrong outcome here somehow for somebody, some stakeholder, right? Maybe it's a client, maybe it's a team member, and I need to own up to that, and I need to figure out, what I did wrong in this situation and how I fix that. And so, very much, for me, particularly on, I think I've always had some natural leadership capabilities and tendencies. Most definitely, over the last 23 years, it's been this journey of acquiring new knowledge and going to, leadership, boot camps and conferences and peer groups and all that kind of stuff, and getting new ideas and learning what's working for other people. I'm a voracious, consumer of podcasts and books, on entrepreneurship and on leadership, because all those things help me fill my gaps. They help me come up with new ideas. They help me understand, maybe where something's not working right in my business and what I need to do about it, or how I need to coach the other leaders or team, in order to fill those gaps within our business, right? So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts around.
Speak to the younger Earl about leadership and how you would help him through that process, because I'm sure there are many times you may look back and say, I wish I would have done that differently. But, obviously you embrace the change and you mature through that process. So speak to not only the younger Earl, but speak to all the CEOs out there that are in a position of leadership. They may be stressed. They don't have organization like they should. So speak to that person, how you
Yeah.
get out of that and what you should do in order to build a stronger leadership knowledge base.
Great. So I would say, the access to resource and thought leadership and content, 23 years ago was nowhere near as prolific as it is right now, right? So when I started in business, it was more of a process of trial and error. And at 23 years old, starting this business and hiring the majority of our team, were in their 20s as well. We definitely started with this total bro culture sort of thing going on, right? Like it was, all about and don't get me wrong, like the culture was cool because we were having a lot of fun, like paintball wars in the office, or airsoft wars in the office, and like just certainly focusing a little bit more on the fun side, of the culture. Not that there's something terribly wrong with that, but there wasn't nearly enough accountability in those days, right? And there probably wasn't nearly enough like dig deep and produce some things, right? Again, that's youth, it's lack of experience. And so we started to produce some unsavory outcomes in the business, and kind of overcorrected, I would say. We went from like that ideal boss that's like, oh, this is so much fun, this is the greatest place, right, to kind of the jerk, right? That was like, and not just, I'm saying we, but myself and at the time my brother, who was a founder in the business then, we kind of got too hardlined probably, and became that boss, not to a major extent, but a boss that wasn't as the type of boss that people really wanted to work with, right? And so over time, certainly realized that was also not the best sort of leadership methodology, right? And ultimately brought the pendulum kind of back to the middle, and figured out there's a balance here, right? You can create a really cool, fun culture where people are fulfilled and rewarded and loving what they're doing, but you also create the right outcomes in business and make sure that there's accountability and that there's productivity and everybody's effective, right? And so I would say for budding entrepreneurs, you've got to be consuming as much content and thought leadership as you can in whatever form that is, right? Podcasts are awesome. Audible books are awesome. Like, many founders like myself are going to be on the road a lot. Like you're commuting, to and from your office, but you're also going to lunch meetings, you're going out to client meetings, you're going to meetings with prospects or partners. And so my car time, and I'm a, I know we're probably going to dig into this, but I'm a musician. And so music is extremely important to me. But I've kind of made myself a commitment that from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, like when I'm in my car, I'm going to be listening to stuff that helps me in business, right? So a lot of podcasts, a lot of, audiobooks. And then throughout my career, being part of best practices groups or peer groups or masterminds, and going to conferences to learn, what's working for other people in your industry and that type of stuff. Those have all been super key to filling, knowledge and skill gaps, particularly when it comes to leadership and entrepreneurship. So those are some of the resources I would definitely recommend. There's a lot more, finding the right mentors and coaches. I know a lot of, budding entrepreneurs don't realize there's an organization called SCORE. It's a sub-entity of the SBA, and it's primarily made up of retired former, executives and founders that provide, free mentorship to businesses, and not only free mentorship, but they help them secure financing and, prepare their financials for, to go into a bank to secure a loan, and prepare pitch decks and whatever's needed. They help them refine operations and all that kind of stuff. So, getting involved in organizations like SCORE, particularly for budding entrepreneurs, younger entrepreneurs, I would recommend it 100%.
I know I've experienced SCORE, and that was a huge part of the growth when I was in San Diego in a different industry. I was, of course, trying to look out what is the SBA, and then all of a sudden I see SCORE and it's there, and it was definitely helpful. So now you're having to build a culture, you're having to interview people, and you're looking for talent to make sure that it fits with your culture. I know for a fact that you're a growth-minded individual. So how do we identify and look for a growth mind in the individuals that you are going to be hiring?
Yeah, very good. In fact, one of our core values, one of our 6 core values, is the practice of a growth and abundance mindset. And those are extremely important things that we look for in our hiring process. If we can kind of nail those things, usually the rest of the ducks fall in line, and that person becomes very successful within our organization. So and certainly being a practitioner of those mindsets, for a long time, it gets easier and easier to kind of identify that in people, to identify people who are willing to kind of strip down their ego and say, I realize that I'm not a perfect being and that I have stuff to work on, right? And that it's okay to be open and vulnerable and say I'm not perfect, right? And I'm willing to understand what my gaps are. I'm willing to understand where my shortcomings and my blind spots are, and I'm willing to, actually work on those things. So I would say, certainly we look at people's we look at their propensity or willingness to learn, is a very good sign for us. I realize that in today's world, a traditional college education isn't always the answer, but we look for people who are lifelong learners, people who are consistently trying to upskill, that are looking to get new certifications or understand that they need to acquire some knowledge, so they're willing to go take a boot camp or something like that, right, in order to do that. So people whose career paths and trajectory show a lot of growth, in their knowledge and skill sets, certainly in their positions. If they've been a tier 1 engineer for 20 years, sometimes you go, okay, why is this person, they're happy at being at a plateau for 20 years. And okay, maybe they can play a role, right? Maybe there's a place for that person because they're very well experienced at 20 years in that role. But we're definitely looking for people that are consistently moving up in their career. So if their resume shows, that they've gone through, different tiers of their career path, right? That's a very good indicator for us. And then just sitting down with those people and really kind of digging in. We definitely, the first things that we vet are like their personality and their core values, how those fit into our organization. Like, the skill sets, the knowledge, the experience, the education, all of that's very important. But if they aren't the right fit from a mentality perspective and a cultural perspective and a core value perspective, then they probably aren't going to work within our organization. So, the first questions we ask are, who are they outside of the office? What's important to them? What are their core values that drive them as an individual and define their character, right? We ask them about their vision for their future. Where are they going as an individual? Where are they going in their career? Where do they want to be in 5 and 10 years? Those things kind of really set the foundation and help us determine from the get-go, is this the right sort of person, that is going to fit into our culture? Because, particularly in an organization that's scaling at pace, you don't have as much luxury of time to really help make people successful in your system that maybe aren't the right fit, right? When you're a smaller organization, you have, a little more luxury to be able to kind of coach people along the way and have more patience in that process, and maybe even take years to kind of scale them to where you need them to be. But as your organization begins to grow at a quicker pace, it becomes far more challenging to kind of dig deep into those people that maybe weren't the right fit from a core values and cultural perspective, out the gate. And so if we kind of match that, then you can begin to fill any knowledge or skill set gaps that might be there. If they're willing to be people that want to learn, then great. Like, we can teach, right? We can teach people, and we can send them to places where they can learn the skills and knowledge they need to be successful in their role.
So currently, where's your company at as far as employees? Number of employees?
I think including fractionals, we're around 55 people total. And, that's more than doubled in the last 12 months.
Yeah, let's talk about that just for a second. So you're at 55. Touch on 3 key, probably the most important things. I'm sure there's tons more, right? But 3 key things that you've learned as a CEO throughout the building of multiple phases within the company. So you had a separation that occurred with your brother, which that was huge. But then it created and propelled you to start to create this new look, feel, culture, build company. So touch on just a little bit about the biggest things that you've learned throughout the course now to 55.
Yeah. And I think my experience and my journey is going to be very different than every founder has their own journey is what I'm saying, right? And the industry very much kind of determines that journey. In my industry, our product is people. Human capital is our product. We don't have a widget, we don't have an app. We don't sell some little consumer good or whatever, right? We don't sell backpacks. We sell talent. And so I think one of the most important realizations for me was just the value of your people as an asset, and really understanding and realizing how important those people, and not that I've always been a people person. People have always been important to me. But again, I've had, a bit of a roller coaster on my leadership journey. And so, really honing in on understanding just how important, people are to our equation. And then, creating the right culture and the right dynamics, vibes, systemology where we're creating opportunities for them to be successful. And they have opportunities to be coached and mentored, in their growth, in their career, and as people. It's important for us to understand as well, not just where they want to go with their career and to help them achieve that, but what are they working on in their personal lives? Are they working on learning to play guitar, or learning to some woodworking skills, or they're trying to build a house, or buy their first house with their family or their loved one, right? Their partner or whatever. So we try to hone in on those things that they're working on a personal level as well, and really help them in that process where we can. I think certainly understanding that people are one of the really important parts of the equation has been, part of that journey. Second, I think, is that in a modern world of business, the client experience is everything. People and businesses are no longer, especially, here in the US, they're no longer willing to have subpar experiences. And so you really have to hone in on, particularly at scale. And this is probably number 3 for me is you have to figure out how to systematize success in your business. I'm not a leader, nor are we a culture that wants to create robotic people, right? In fact, one of our other core values is empowered shared leadership. And that ideal kind of, for us, means that we want every individual on the team to take a set of what we call success processes or procedures, and then to put their own artistic, flair and touch on those. But so it's not, we don't have a whole lot of really scripted things within our organization. What we have is a foundation. We have a very extensive documentation and process library. Those things are meant to help our team members be successful, but they aren't meant for them to have to be robotic. That customer experience, paramount, absolutely paramount. But in order to enable your people to repeatedly, provide that customer experience, you've got to have systems in place. You've got to have process that they can rely on, that consistently, is quick reference for them. So when they're faced with different scenarios, on a day-to-day basis, scenarios that maybe they've never been in before, or scenarios that they haven't been in for months or years, that they can, they have a reference database they can go to and quickly understand how to be, successful in that situation. And then I think the next extension of that is, part of creating a hyper-functional team is creating teams that are highly collaborative, that are highly supportive of each other, right? So that to me is the other piece. Sometimes, they may not have the luxury in the moment or the time to, go study a success process. Maybe there's a success process that, that we have a gap and it hasn't been written yet. Right. And so, relying upon other people within the organization, on their team, as reference, in order to support them. That's the other piece that's super important here to, I think, consistently creating a client experience that's predictable for the clients, that's not just satisfactory, but, is oftentimes extraordinary for them.
Well, everybody out there, you can obviously tell Earl has got it down as far as systems, but it's good to hear what you've said here. You touched on quite a few different things. I've taken some notes here. We got number 1, culture; number 2, systems; number 3, leadership. Then you shot over to client experiences, which is, as we know, extremely important. And you said that was definitely, it's on the top. 2, systemizing success, and that was back to systems. And then we've got highly supportive and collaborative team. So I would say that touches on some of the most important things that an organization can implement. So moving on, we're almost finished here, but I am once again, I'm thankful that you've taken the time to hop on the Founders Odyssey today and share just a wealth of knowledge. So what are you excited about here in the future? And how can people get a hold of you?
Very good. Well, just again, I want to thank you for inviting me on the show, Nathan. It's been a lot of fun to spend some time with you today, and I truly hope that this content is valuable. I think through my own podcast and content leadership, trying to do something similar to what you're doing and creating thought leadership that creates thriving ecosystems for entrepreneurs and founders is extremely important to me. A lot of this stuff just wasn't readily available when I started. And so, I took my lumps for a decade or so before I really kind of found my stride. And I'd rather, help other founders, find their stride a lot quicker than I was able to. Let's see, you asked for contact information, and what was the other thing? I went blank.
Look, what are you excited about, both in your business as well as personally? So you can hit 2 things, personal and business.
Yeah, very good. On the business side, Nexus IT is scaling at very significant pace right now. We are getting very, very intent on regional and national expansion efforts. And so over the next 5 to 6 years, we're trying to take Nexus IT into at least 20 to 30, new markets around the country, and significantly expanding our physical footprint. We're in a business where, yes, 85 or 90% of the service we do can be done via remote at this point, but we also need, boots on the ground, engineers that can do on-site services and support when it's needed, or projects, deployments, implementations, that kind of stuff. And so, we're in that process, and I'm very excited about, what the future holds here, for Nexus IT. Similarly, that journey, also holds a lot of opportunity for me and my family personally. 23 years into this journey, I've spent a lot of time and effort on this business. And I'm not that I'm planning to scale back, massively, but as we, and I'm not going to be naive either, expansion is a lot of work. But as we continue to expand, we're able to add more, more hands, more talent, more skill, more leaders to the charge that can help, carry the load. And so, consistently I'm seeing where I'm able to take more and more hats off and, delegate and give, duties to other people. And so it's helping create a little more balance for me. Depends on the day and the week. I mean, they're right now, because we're in this, this expansion mode. Oftentimes my days are 12 hours or 14 or 16 hours. But I also have the luxury, every couple of months of taking off for a week or 2, right? And going with my family somewhere and, disconnecting as much as possible, because my team does a fantastic job. Like, I never come back from a vacation and have a massive fire to deal with or anything like that, because they make sure that, business continues to go well and that we're continuing to move forward. So on the personal level, I'm excited to be able to, to continue to create a little bit more balance in life, and, take more hats off and delegate a little bit more, and have more hands to do the work with me. And then, to contact us if you want to get in touch, we're on the web at nexusitc.net. Our local Utah number, 801-839-7006. We do have a toll-free number. I don't know it off the top of my head. It's on the website, or you can hit us up at info@nexusitc.net.
Perfect. Well, hey, once again, thank you so much for coming on the Founders Odyssey podcast, where we educate, inspire, and challenge you as a founder out there to grow and get to your next level. So, Earl, thank you so much today.
Such a pleasure. I really appreciate it, Nathan. Thank you.